What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Game Show presented by Front Yard Fantasy. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my co-host, John Luke Garofalo. What's up, JL?
You. That's my hello sound when I'm excited. You.
Guys, also joining us today, we got two special guests hopping on to play some Fantasy Fortune with us. First up, we've got Nate Polvote. If you don't know Nate, come on. But he is the everything man over at IBT Media. He does offensive line rankings and DFS with Fantasy Pros, a writer over at Trophy Smack, and just a great dude. Nate, thanks so much for joining the show today, my man.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. I was supposed to be here last week, but then I had way too much going on, and Jay was gracious enough to let me out of it. But here I am. Let's go.
Jay, always so gracious. Guys, also joining us today, here to try to take Nate and JL down in some Fantasy Fortune, we've got our friend Shevin Nooney with us. He is the co-host of Dynasty Rewind. Shevin, thank you so much for coming on with us today, my man.
I'm so happy to be here. It's going to be a tough one. Nate is hitting the Infinity Gauntlet, hitting all these games, so a little nervous, but, you know, I'll be ready. I believe in you.
I haven't played this one yet, so this is anybody's game.
You haven't played this?
No, which is funny because I'm really good at Wheel of Fortune.
I don't believe you.
This is the final one. This is your final Infinity Stone. Your final FYF Infinity Stone is Fantasy Fortune today. We got some people in the chat ready for today's show. Craig, but he says, sorry to miss being on here today.
Oh, no,
with
Craig.
Computer is broken. Well, you shouldn't have thrown it. You should not have thrown it, Craig. That's what happens when you throw your computer.
Tom Brady is not a role model.
Scott in here. What's up, guys? So glad the fantasy season has finally started. In the last 2 weeks definitely did not happen. Yep, definitely didn't happen. No siree, Bob. No 2 weeks of football happened here. I think the prospects for Darnell Mooney and the Chicago Bears offense are still looking pretty great since we haven't seen them on the field. That's
Travis
for sure.
Etienne is a sleeper.
Oh, absolutely a sleeper. And Scott in here saying Nate is my brother from another mother.
Indeed.
And Jay said, you've been on like 500 times. How have you not played this?
I don't know, Jay. You're the scheduler. This is on you, but you righted it today. So.
And Mr. Scamper says, hey, I know these faces, and we know that cat. Welcome in, Scampers. Glad to have you here. We brought you guys here today to play some Fantasy Fortune, like we mentioned. Before we get into that, though, a couple reminders. Number one, if you're not following our guests, both of them on Twitter, go and fix that right now. Shevin is on Twitter at ShevBoyRD, and that is boy with an I, because how else would you spell it? So make sure you're over there following him right now, ShevBoyRD. And then Nate is on Twitter at Nate Polvote. That is Polvogt, right there below his face on the screen. And that sick Broncos hat. So make sure you're following Nate as well. After you've done that, if you're watching this, that means you're probably already on our YouTube channel. Hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe to our channel at Front Yard Fantasy. Hit that bell and you'll never miss another one of these live streams again.
The best way to show your love to us.
That's right.
Second best way to show your love to
You're right.
me.
Send us pictures of your feet. That's number one.
Send us pictures of your feet is the first way to show love. And really, you can send them straight to Rick Butts and he'll forward them to me. So you can just send them to Rick and say, Simon sent you. Put it in a DM. Simon said you'd forward this to him. Pictures of your feet to Rick Butts on Twitter.
He's our unpaid intern, and we set him up with feet pick intake. So
Rick's
please be mean to him.
He's only on a 1-year plan though, so if anyone else is interested in the foot internship for next year, just let us know. Submit your application, and we'll start looking through this. Hit up Seth. You think Seth will be good for
dude, he's an all-around man these days, man. He does a little bit of it all. I'm sure he'd take that off.
Perfect. Sounds right up Seth's alley. And Jay said, I so hope Rick is watching. Me too. It gets a little weirder if Rick's not watching this.
Yeah, then it's real mean. Just like, why is everyone sending me pictures of their feet and insults?
If Rick's watching, it's funny. If Rick's not watching, it's cyberbullying. So we're skating a really fine line right there. Scott, you can't just come in here with a Simon Says joke. You're lucky. You've really established yourself as high up in my people ranking, Scott. So this isn't going to affect your ranking. But if you were sitting in like the 50th percentile or lower of people rankings, and you came in with a Simon Says joke, it would be a downgrade for sure. I'd knock you down a couple tiers, but I'm going to let it slide because it's Scott. We brought you guys here today to play some Fantasy Fortune. I'm going to go ahead and pull this game board up and explain how this is going to work. This is a lot like the popular TV show Wheel of Fortune, but instead of spinning the wheel in order to guess letters, You guys will be answering mostly 50-50 NFL or fantasy-related trivia questions. Get the question right, you get to guess a consonant that you think is in the puzzle. For every instance of the consonant that shows up, you're going to add $500 to your round bank. You can do that again after you get it right. And again, one more time, but we're going to cap you at 3 turns of getting questions and letters right. If at any point during your turn you get a question wrong or a letter that doesn't show up on the board, bonk, we're going to the next person. During your turn, at any point except after a question has been asked, you can purchase a vowel or you can solve the puzzle. Vowels are going to cost $100 per instance that shows up to a max of $500. So I'm going to require you to have a minimum of $500 in your round bank in order to buy a vowel. And then solving the puzzle will earn you a minimum of $1,000 into your total bank. That's not 1,000 plus. So if you've got 2,000 in your round bank already, you're adding 2,000. But if you have 500, we're going to add a minimum of 1,000 to your total for solving that puzzle. You guys ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're going to go until we run out of puzzles or run out of time. Before we do that, though, Albert, good afternoon. Welcome in. Glad to have you here, my friend. And Joe had a question for us. Is it worth trading Freiermuth and a bench guy for Dalton Schultz? Nate, would you be willing to make that move?
I would not, sir. I don't know. With Cooper Rush, and we don't know when Dak's going to be back, and it's a whole thing, and I don't want to wait that long for production.
Chev, what about you?
Yeah, Freiermuth's a young stud that I want to keep on my roster. I'm not trying to go get Schultz, which we don't know where he's going to be next year either. So I love to hang on to Freiermuth here.
JL, what about you?
I was almost muted, but I'm not. No, I would probably go Freiermuth.
I don't view it as a massive upgrade. Dalton Schultz is likely out next week. Dak is out for an extended period of time that we're not aware of. I'm with you guys. Like in a vacuum, at the beginning of the season, who do I rather want on my team, Schultz or Freiermuth? It's Schultz. Like that would have been my answer. But looking at this, there's just too many unknowns on that side to trade away a guy who's getting he's getting pretty heavily targeted in that Steelers offense, more than I thought he was going to be with all of the mouths to feed over there. You guys ready to get into this first puzzle?
Let's do it.
Also, I don't know if we hit this, but good afternoon, Albert.
I did hit it. Hi, Albert. You were there, Dale. We'll say it
Albert.
Again. Oh, and then this one as well. Albert, good afternoon.
Glad to have Albert. You. What's up, Albert?
Hey,
Albert. Didn't know you're here, baby.
Also, Mr. Scamper's letting us know, but we don't live in a vacuum.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. Where Earth exists in a vacuum. So checkmate, atheist.
Checkmate, atheists. Wow. Gotcha.
Wow.
Guys, remember all the rules I just told you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Throw those out the window for this first puzzle. There are no questions. This is a toss-up. I'm going to slowly reveal letters. When you think you know the player name, say your name loudly. The first person to buzz in will get to guess. If you're wrong, you're out for this round. Whoever gets it right is going to get $500 off the bat and get to start on our first puzzle. I'm going to start revealing letters. Are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
JL.
JL?
Greg Dortch.
It is Greg Dortch, JL. Greg Dortch is correct. You're going to have $500 to your round bank. And JL, your cheering may have told me the answer already, but how are you feeling about Greg Dortch in fantasy? Do you think he has any long-term value for this season, or is it just a Rondale Moore is out fill-in?
It's probably just a Rondale Moore is out thing, but the name is great. So let's ride.
Dortch. Chev, how are you feeling about Mr. Dortch Dash?
Yeah, I mean, the Arizona Cardinals need him to step up because nobody else is doing that on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, he's been the spark plug for them so far. He's gotten the offense going. I don't think he's going to do much after Hopkins comes back, but for right now, they're using him, and they need him to be successful.
Yeah. Nate, are you feeling similarly about Dortch to these guys?
I mean, I think once Rondale Moore and Hopkins are back, he's a nobody. And what you're having to pay to acquire him and redraft on the waiver wire just isn't worth it for short term.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't think where is he right now? He's like a wide receiver 2 on the season right now in PPR leagues. You're not ending with a wide receiver 2, Greg Dortch. You're just not. It's probably not going to happen. Yeah, Rondale Moore and Nuke coming back. JL, you got that one correct, meaning you're going to start off on this next puzzle and with $500.
Let's go.
Let's go and pull this up. I see some more questions in the chat. We will hit some of those after this puzzle. Here is your first normal puzzle after that toss-up. It is a week 2 highlight. So this is something that happened in week 2. JL, would you like a question or would you like to solve?
Oh, boy. I would like a question.
A question for JL.
Oh, before we get to that question, though, I want to make sure we hit this comment. Good afternoon, Albert. Welcome in.
What's up, buddy?
Good
afternoon,
afternoon.
Means a lot.
Better late than never, Albert. Man, would have been nice if you got here 5 minutes ago and we could have addressed that comment then. JL, here's your first question. Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? So just in week 2, who had more PPR fantasy points? Was it Amari Cooper or was it Johan Dotson?
I'm going to go with Johan Dotson.
It is Amari Cooper. I'm so sorry with 25.1 to Johan Dotson at 17.9, which means I've got the order listed wrong here. But Chevin, you are up next. Would you like a question or would you like to solve this?
Question, please.
Before I do that, a reminder to our contestants, make sure you're in the private chat, not in the comments, and everybody in the comments, throw your answers in there. If you solve it before everybody on the show, we'll give you mad props. And if you're very wrong, we'll mock you relentlessly.
They probably already solved it, honestly.
Not yet. You ready for your question, Chevin?
Let's do it.
Who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it Deebo Samuel or was it Drake London?
I'm going to go Drake London.
Drake London is correct. 24.6 to Deebo Samuel's 14.7. Which letter would you like?
I know you love that, Simon. I'm going to go with an S.
An S. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 S's in this puzzle. Going to build you up $2,500 early to start. Before we get into that, though, Dave, my man, coming in to see everybody today, but especially Nate. Thank you so much, Dave. We love a toonie in the chat. We're a sucker for a toonie. Chevin, you ready for your next question?
Yes, please.
Okay, here is your next question. Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it James Robinson or was it Saquon Barkley?
Oh, I am going to go with James Robinson.
James Robinson is correct. Nice job, Chevin. Which letter would you like?
Let's go with a T.
T. There are 3 T's in this puzzle. Would you like another question? Would you like to solve a vowel? Or would you like to solve a vowel? Would you like to buy a vowel or would you like to solve this puzzle? This is your last opportunity to buy a vowel this turn before we go on to Nate.
Let me just go with another question.
One more question. Who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it Tony Pollard or was it Jeff Wilson?
I'm going to go Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard is correct. The number 3 scoring running back on the week in PPR. Which letter would you like, Chevin?
Let's go with a D. Give me the D.
Give him the D.
D. There are 2 D's in this puzzle. Going to add 1,000. Chevin, you've got 5 seconds to solve this, or we're moving on to the next person.
Pretty good.
The grimace is gone.
I wish.
You got it. Unfortunately, that's incorrect, but you are going to bank all of this money, Chevin, giving you an early lead, $5,000 in that bank. But we're moving on to Nate. Nate, would you like to solve this puzzle? Or would you like a question?
I would like to, but I can't yet. So I'll take the question.
That's how I answer most things.
My question for you is, who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it DJ Moore or was it Curtis Samuel?
Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel is correct. Nate, which letter would you like?
I'm going to take the H.
The H.
H.
There are 2 H's in this puzzle. We're going to add 1,000. Would you like to buy a vowel? Would you like to solve, or would you like another question?
Let's do another question.
Another question. Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who had more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it Marquise Brown or was it Noah Brown?
Noah Brown.
Noah Brown is absolutely correct. Which letter would you like, Nate?
N.
And before we get to that, though, Scott Fish in here saying, the board says STDs.
Good one, Scott. Scots are just the best. All Scots. Michael Scott. I don't love. Yeah, right?
I bet I can find a shitty Scott somewhere.
Trying to think. I got Uncle Scott. He's great. I wasn't allowed to have a dog as a kid, so he would pretend to be my dog whenever we visited family. That's a good Scott.
It's a weird thing to do.
I mean, we'll stop there. There was nothing weird about it. He would just crawl around and pretend to be a dog. It runs in the family. Whose turn was it? Nate, your turn, right?
Yeah.
And you wanted another question, correct?
Well, but I wanted the N first.
Oh, yeah, you did. I wanted to make sure we got STDs on the board. I wasn't sure if there was a letter in between. There are 4 N's, going to add $2,000 to your score. Nate, this is your last opportunity to buy a vowel this turn.
I know one of the words.
You can solve, or you can take another question.
I'll take another question.
Another question. Okay, my question for you is who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Who scored more PPR fantasy points in week 2? Was it Sammy Watkins or was it Courtland Sutton?
Sammy Watkins had a decent day, but I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton. I think I'm going to regret that. But
well, Nate, you saw right through my double trick. It is Courtland Sutton. You're absolutely correct. I think we just wanted Sammy to have that big game. And so when he got a couple touches, like I'm elevating him in my mind. Which letter would you like? If this is up there, you're banking this money.
R.
R. There are 4 R's in this puzzle, adding another 2,000. Nate, you got 5 seconds to solve this, but you're going to bank that 5,000 regardless.
Tua throws for 6 TDs in Dolphins win over Ravens.
Damn it.
Woo. It is Tua throws for 6 TDs and Dolphins win over Ravens. Nice job on that solve, Nate. Going to add 5,000 to your bank. And by solving it, you blocked JL from adding any more money to his score this round. You could have given him another shot. But so far, the score is 5,000 to 5,000 to 500. JL, you're 1-0 behind. It's only one number behind, really.
It's nothing. No problem. Coming back.
Let's see. We've got there were some people in the chat who got this early by putting it together. Let's see. I'm not sure who the first person in here was. Albert said in Dolphins win over Ravens. Figured that part out. Nice job. And I see we got Davis Pang in here. What's up, Pang? Welcome.
What up, Davis?
Glad to have you here. I can't find the first person who solved it, but Albert, nice job right there. Oh, look, another Scott. It was Scott Rainier, 2 throws for 6 TDs. Albert coming in with the alley-oop with in Dolphins win over Ravens.
Scott said Boston Scott is annoying. That's true. Boston might have found a she's in Scott Fisher. Boston Scott. Well done. Well done.
Oh.
Nate, is Tua for real? We just saw him throw for 6 touchdowns against this Ravens team, pull out the win in the 4th quarter. Do you think Tua is a guy that you can trust week in, week out in your fantasy lineups?
I think so. I think I'm sold. I mean, that Ravens defense isn't a bad defense. They're not a great defense, but dude lit up, man. I mean, 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. The cojones on him to lead that comeback is just unbelievable. So, I mean, for that, yeah, I think he's a guy who's he doesn't necessarily have the high-end talent, but he has that high-end will and enough talent to be reliable rest of the season and moving forward in Dynasty, I think, too.
Absolutely. We had a question in here from Chef. What's up, Chef? Welcome in. This is like 2 offers for CEH. One is Pollard and Breece Hall. The other is Akers and Patterson redraft. Their running backs currently are Javonte, Mixon, Pierce, CEH, and Stevenson, 10-man league. So you got the depth to trade away CEH. I guess it's a matter of if you like either of these trades. Chev, do you like one of these trades, Pollard and Breece or Akers and Patterson for CEH?
Yeah, I'm probably leaning the Pollard and Breece Hall side. I just think they're going to get a lot more touches. I think Pollard will see more in the reception area as well. I think Breece Hall will at some point surpass the other running backs there at the Jets. I'm not a big CEH guy. I think he's getting production right now, but he's not getting the touches. I think at some point it falls off. I mean, hopefully he stays going well, but I just don't see that production just to keep progressing, honestly.
I'm with you. If he kills it this year, that's going to be the one where, like, I'm just going to be like, well, duh. Know what I mean? Like, it's going to be one of those ones where I'm like, I'm an idiot. It's the starting running back in the Chiefs. Like, we should have drafted him, but I'm with you. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm going to keep on thinking like the production just isn't lining up with the amount of work he's being given in those games. But maybe with the Chiefs, that's all you need. Nate, which one of these are you preferring?
No, I'm definitely taking Pollard and Breece Hall. I get rid of CH. Like, you guys just hit the nail on the head. The volume isn't there to continue this level of fantasy production. It's not realistic. And he's not going to see an increase in volume. If anything, he'll see a decrease in volume as the season goes on. As they get more comfortable with guys like Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon's going to be more involved. Sell him now while you can. Like, honestly. And Pollard and Breece Hall is a great return.
Yeah.
We had a question in here from Adam. JL, I'll throw this one to you. Tony Pollard for Scary Terry. Which side are you taking?
Tony Pollard. I think I would keep Terry McLaurin in this, honestly. He's, to me, clearly the number one guy in that offense. And, we talked a lot about this Washington offense and how they're a team that I want to have a part of. They're a team that I think can provide a ton of value for where people drafted all the players on that team. I think they can return immense value. This is a pretty even trade for me, but I would lean the Terry McLaurin side in a vacuum.
Yeah, in a Dyson, I'm taking Terry, but this is one that's like super team dependent. Like, if you need that running back, if you had Elijah Mitchell go out and you were hitching your wagon to Cam Akers as well, and maybe now you're staring at your starting running backs as like Jordan Mason and Darrell Williams that you picked up off waivers this week, Tony Pollard's great, and Scary Terry's a fair price to send off for Tony Pollard. Chev, what do you think? Are you on the Pollard side or Terry side here?
Yeah, I'm going the Terry side. I would honestly try to go get Johan Dotson before Terry. I feel like his value is a little bit lower, and I think his production is still going to remain, and he's going to get better and better as the season goes on.
We got Justin in here. What's up, Justin? Welcome in. Just in time for some fantasy fortune. You guys ready for this next puzzle?
Let's do it.
Out of the chat. I'm getting out of the chat.
Out of the chat. We're going to load up this next puzzle. And we got a player movie mashup right here. This could be something like Boston Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Or I can't think of any Silence of the CD
Dude,
Lambs.
where's my Derek Carr?
Dude, that's the other one I always use, but I forgot that one. Thanks, JL. So something like that, where we took a player name and just shoved it into a movie title. And that's the puzzle. Nate, you solved that last one, which means JL, we are starting with you. Are you ready for your first question, or would you like to solve this puzzle?
No, I'm hoping that the question is a little nicer to me this time.
Okay, JL, my question for you is, through 2 weeks, who has more rushing yards in the NFL? Who has more rushing yards? So this is through 2 weeks, the whole season, not just week 2, all of the weeks. Who has more rushing yards? Is it DeAndre Swift or is it Lamar Jackson?
Rushing yards, DeAndre Swift, Lamar Jackson. I feel like DeAndre Swift has to have he's had 2 pretty good games. I don't remember how much Lamar has run. I feel like DeAndre Swift has to be over 200 yards from the season. I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift is correct with 200 to Lamar Jackson's 136 through 2 games, though. JL, which letter would you like?
Let's go with the N.
N. There are 3 N's in this puzzle. Going to add 1,500 to your round bank. JL, would you like to buy a vowel or would you like another question?
I would like another question.
Another question. Who has more rushing yards at this point in the season? Who has more rushing yards? Is it Melvin Gordon or is it James Robinson?
James Robinson.
James Robinson's correct. JL, which letter would you like?
Let's go with an R.
R. There are 2 R's in this puzzle, JL. Going to add another 1,000. This is your last opportunity to buy a vowel, or we can roll into that final question, or you can solve it.
Let's go gently into that sweet good night.
Gently into that sweet good night. JL, who has more rushing yards on the season? Who has more rushing yards on the season? Is it Aaron Jones or is it Javonte Williams?
Javonte Williams.
I'm sorry. It is Aaron Jones
I
after that
answered
monster
without thinking
game
about it and immediately regretted it.
I saw it in your face. You answered there like, oh, no.
I was like, nope, that's not right.
Pretty good run right there, but
not good enough.
And we're moving on to Chev. Chev, would you like a question? Would you like to solve? Or those are your only two options right now because you have no money?
Question, please.
A question. We're going to stick with some rushing yards right here. Who has more rushing yards on the season so far? Is it Derrick Henry or is it Cordero Patterson?
Ooh, I'm going to go Cordero Patterson.
Cordero Patterson is correct with 161 to Derrick Henry's 107. Which letter would you like?
Let's go with an S.
An S. There are two S's in this puzzle. Going to add $1,000. Would you like to solve? Would you like to buy a vowel or would you like another question?
Let's go another question.
Another question. Who has more rushing yards on the season so far? Who has more rushing yards on the season so far? Is it Ezekiel Elliott or is it David Montgomery?
Ooh, let's go David Montgomery.
Perfect so far, Chev. David Montgomery is correct. Which letter would you like?
That one scared me. I'm going to go with, let's go G.
A G. There are two G's in this puzzle. Going to add another grand. Chev, this is your last opportunity to buy a vowel this turn if you would like to do so. Or we can go on to your final question, or you can just solve this.
Oh, man. I feel like I'm close. Let's go to the next question.
One more question and one more rushing yards question. Who has more rushing yards so far on the season? Who has more rushing yards so far on the season? Is it Darrell Henderson or is it Josh Jacobs?
Let's go Darrell Henderson.
I'm sorry. It is Josh Jacobs with more rushing yards through 2 games, which means, Nate, we're on to you. Would you like to solve this puzzle or would you like a question?
I just get $5,000 if I solve it, right?
You get $1,000 if you solve it.
Nice try.
You know what? I'm not gonna risk it. I think I'm just gonna go for it and I'm gonna solve it.
Let's do it.
Nelson Aguilar of the Rings.
It is Nelson Aguilar of the Rings. Nice job on that one, Nate. Gonna pull a cool 1,000 and the lead with that one right there.
Well done, Nate.
Shout out to Dustin in the
Puzzle
chat.
master.
1 minute ago, so barely before you guys, right around the same time, Dustin came in with Nelson Aguilar of the Rings, and Mr. Scampers had just Lord of the Rings right before that. Could pick out Lord of the Rings anywhere, that cat. I also see Jacob in here with a question for us. Should I start Aiden Hutchinson in an IDP league? So, Jacob, I'm going to be honest with you. Two things here. I don't know a lot about IDP, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say yes. Aiden Hutchinson looked incredible in that game, but maybe double check with someone who knows IDP more. Chev or Nate, do either of you have any IDP expertise?
I actually play a lot of IDP, and Aiden Hutchinson really made me sad last week playing against him. And I would ride that train, man.
Yeah.
Chev, what about you?
Yeah, Jacob's actually a guy in my home league that we just started 2 IDP players this season. So I had to switch it up after 6 years. And I think Aiden Hutchinson's a good player, especially if he keeps getting to the quarterback. It's a lot of points, man. I would go for it.
3
trade him.
last week. 3. I looked in our one IDP league, Simon, our Dynasty IDP league, just to see how many points he got. 24.5 points.
Sounds about right. Yeah,
that'll change the matchup.
That league, that first season, I had a terrible team, but I had Aaron Donald in the year that he just absolutely went off, and I won. I just won because of Aaron Donald. Like, it was unfair. It was like having another quarterback just like on that team. It was in a non-super flex league. I get like quarterback scoring down there, but then I haven't figured out anything else since then. So if someone wants to help me, Chev, I'm going to call you. Nate, I'm going to call you right after this. If you could help me with my IDP stuff.
Call me up.
I don't know that you want my help, but you can call.
Perfect. Sven in here saying solid, Nate Doggy. And hi, birthday buddy. Who's Sven's birthday buddy? Show yourself.
Not me.
And Jay said, well done, Nate. Good puzzle, Simon. Thank you, sir. And well done, Nate. We're going to move on to our next puzzle. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Puzzle number 4. Nate solved that one. Nate's on a streak solving these puzzles, which means, JL, you'll get to go first. You're in a little bit of a hole, but you got plenty of time to catch up. The category here is fantasy surprises. So these are players that I think objectively you could call a surprise for their start through the first 2 weeks of the season. And someone's going to be in there and be like, no, I called it. Just consensus. This is a consensus surprise right here. JL, would you like a question or would you like to solve this puzzle?
So these are just 2 players who are surprises. No other relation to each other, right?
They may have another relation, but the only relation I'm giving you is that they're both surprises.
Okay.
I'm not going to guarantee that there's no relation or state that there is another one. The only thing you know is that these are 2 different players who both are surprises according to consensus.
I will take a question.
Okay. My question for you is who has more receiving yards so far this season? Who has more receiving yards so far this season? Is it Tyreek Hill or is it Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp.
I'm sorry, JL. It is Tyreek Hill leading the league with 284 compared to Cooper Kupp at 236. 284 through 2 weeks is absurd. But that week that he just had will do that. What was it? Like close to 190 receiving yards or something like that? Something absurd.
Yeah, he went nuclear.
Just nuclear. Chev, it's your turn. Would you like a question or would you like to solve this puzzle?
Let's go a question.
My question for you is who has more receiving yards so far this season? Who has more receiving yards so far this season? Is it Stephon Diggs or is it Justin Jefferson?
I'm going to go Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs is correct with 270 to J. Jeff's 232. Which letter would you like?
Let's go with another S.
Another S, and there are 3 S's in this puzzle. Going to add 1,500. Would you like another question? Would you like to solve, or would you like to buy a vowel?
I think I know part of it. I'm going to need another question for the other one, though.
Okay, my question for you is who has more receiving yards so far on the season? Who has more receiving yards? Is it Darren Waller, or is it Mark Andrews?
I'm going to go Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews is correct, Chev. I thought that one was a little tricky, but you got it. Which letter would you like?
Let's go with an R.
An R. There are 2 R's in this puzzle, adding another grand to your round bank. Do you want to solve this puzzle? Do you want another question? Or would you like to buy a vowel?
I think I'm going to try to solve. I'm going to go Carson Wentz and Curtis Samuel.
It is Carson Wentz and Curtis Samuel. Dale, you were sniffing around it. They happen to be on the same team, but that is not part of the category right there. Nice job, Chef, at getting that one. You're going to add 2,500 to your round bank, giving you the lead back over Nate. And similar to the Tua question that I asked you, Nate, Chef, I wanted to ask you, is this for real? Carson Wentz and Curtis Samuel, are these guys you can trust in your lineup week in, week out?
I think Carson Wentz, he has good players around him to sling the ball to. I think he'll be all right. Curtis Samuel, I'm scared to plant my flag on. I mean, we've seen the guy do well, and then there's times where he's just injured and he's not playing at all. So Curtis Samuel worries me a good amount. If you can sell Curtis Samuel a dynasty for whatever you can get at this point, I mean, he was probably going to go as a 5th round pick in your leagues to trade for. So I'm trying to get away from Curtis Samuel. As long as he's healthy, I think he'll be all right. But I think Johan Dotson, like I said earlier, is somebody that I really love right now. I think he's got good potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And right before this, Jail, you were on with JJ, and I heard him talking about rookie wide receivers. Like, even if it seems like a buy high right now, rookie wide receivers historically do much better in the second half of the season. So even though after 2 games, 3 touchdowns for Johan Dotson, you may be thinking like, oh, this is the worst time to put out an offer for him. You know, there's a very real chance, like historically speaking, statistically speaking, that the second half of this year is where he really starts breaking out. So I'm with you, Chev. That's a guy that I'm looking to add to my teams. JL, how do you feel about Mr. Carson Wentz? Through 2 weeks, he's looking pretty good, like the QB4 or something like that in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues. You bought in?
I'm not fully bought in the sense that like I'm viewing Carson Wentz as a top 5 quarterback, but I'm certainly bought in the sense that I think he could be more valuable than he has been, or than what people were expecting. Not has been, because he's been valuable the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Curtis Samuel, I'm interested in picking him up solely from the fact of the opportunity, right? The targets that are there for him. He's got 23.5% of this target share so far through 2 weeks, 11 targets in the first week, 9 targets in the second week. I agree with Chev that Johan Dotson is another guy I'm really trying to pick up, but I'm not necessarily ignoring Curtis Samuel. I would try and trade him away if you can get someone who's willing to pay, more high value for Curtis Samuel though.
The problem with Curtis Samuel for me is maybe he gets 11 targets, but 10 of those 11 targets are going to be 10 of the most boring targets you've ever seen in your life for fantasy. One of them, they'll have a really cool design play to get him open in the end zone, and they'll shoot their shot with Curtis Samuel once or twice a game. But most of them are just going to be these like low ADOT, like shallow passes to Curtis Samuel, and it's not too exciting. But there's value in that level of targets. And Scott saying we'll see if Wentz is for real against Philly and Dallas the next two games, two very good defenses. Yeah, if he makes it through that gauntlet, then we'll probably be talking about him with a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, I think I brought that up this on the morning show, is that the matchups have been fairly easier for Carson Wentz. So you can make the argument.
You got to do it against bad teams too. You got to do it both ways. And everything we've seen from him so far, he's done it. But there's still that question mark. Sven in here wanted to know, I'd trade away CEH and Turner. Oh, this was an answer to a different question right there. We agree, Sven. We agree.
Good question.
Mr. Scampers want to know, add Tua or Cousins in one QB. Tua going up against the Bills, and then the Vikings are going up against the Lions this week. So Nate, who would you be adding in one QB, Tua or Cousins, if they're both on the waiver wire?
Cousins. I don't like that Tua matchup against the Bills. They've made everyone they've played look bad. They made Matthew Stafford look average, and we know he's a better than average quarterback. Cousins up against Detroit, their secondary isn't nearly as good as Philly. There's no Darius Slay this week, and I think Cousins is going to rebound. I mean, Justin Jefferson's going to come back from this. So is Kirk Cousins, and I would prefer Cousins in this situation.
Cousins from Nate. What about you, Chev?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat for this week as well. I mean, the Bills have just looked dominant, and that's not something I really want to go up against at the moment. I mean, it could come down to a 50-50 game where the teams are just going crazy with just how much talent they have, but I'm willing to put my money on Cousins just to have the safer play against the Lions here, like Nate said.
I'm going to go Tua. And if this was just like 1 week, I think I'd agree with you. Cousins is the better play this week for sure, but I'm looking at which of these guys do I want to start week in, week out for the rest of the season? Because if you can find that on the waiver wire, that's the goal, right? The goal is never to just stream every week. If you can get a guy that has that kind of top 5, top 6 upside and play them every week, and that's what you want. And I think Tua has that upside, so I'm willing to maybe take the little bit of a hit of him going against the Bills. I think he's good enough that he's still going to be fine. And see what we got with Tua. See if he's the guy that you can roll with the rest of the year. Cousins is fine. JL, do you want to pick your favorite player, Kirk Cousins, or Tua Tagovailoa here?
I am going to pick Greek Yogurt, actually. That Bills matchup is pretty frightening. The Miami offensive line is not fantastic, and I think that Bills defense will probably be able to reduce this Miami Dolphins offense to 1 or 2 dimensions, which is going to be tough to get over. I don't necessarily see this as like a Tua can't do it, but just I don't know that he has the team in place to be able to defend against this Bills defense that is just ridiculous.
It's absurd. It's been absurd to watch. I'm waiting for the week where we see it like kind of come back down to earth, right? Like see a team do something against them, but I haven't seen it so far. Like we'll see if the Dolphins can do it. I want a good game, but I'm afraid we're just going to get another like all this hype, and then all of a sudden the Bills win by 25, 30 points, and we're just sitting there looking at that story all season. Evan in here was offered a trade, got offered Jamar Chase and James Robinson for DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Is this a no-brainer? He also has Najee, Michael Carter, and Travis Etienne. Nate, what do you think about this trade? He got offered Jamar Chase and James Robinson for Swift and Williams. Are you taking this?
Yep, probably. I mean, you've got 2 players with massive upside versus one guy with massive upside and Jamal Williams. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
JL, are you in agreement here?
Man. So take away which side? Okay, so this is Evan would be receiving Jamar Chase and James Robinson, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I would be taking that trade as well. I thought it was the other way around. I was gonna say I just wish Jamal Williams was someone different.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm taking Jamar Chase and James Robinson here. We're all on the same page. Yep. Jacob wanted to know, would you trade Dobbins for Schultz in PPR? My other running backs are Henry, Barkley, Fournette, Gibson, and J-Rob. Current tight end is Everett. No, I absolutely would not.
No.
Now, you're looking at the right position to trade, though. You're loaded at running back. You got a bunch of guys that I feel confident about in Henry, Barkley, Fournette, Gibson, and then some upside in J-Rob. So you can make a move like this. I think J.K. Dobbins is the wrong piece to move because his value can only go up probably once he starts playing a little bit. Maybe J-Rob is the guy to move. Maybe Gibson is a perfect kind of guy to move right now before Robinson comes back. And then shoot a little higher than Schultz because Everett's going to be a fine tight end for you during the season. I don't think Schultz is a massive upgrade. Chev, what do you think here?
Yeah, there's just too much speculation on what Schultz is actually going to be in that offense now with Cooper Rush, and I'm not willing to put my hat on it. I think Dobbins, he seems like he's ready to come back. They're taking it slow, which is fine. I think he's going to be gnawing at the bit, man, to get back. So I think Dobbins is a guy that I would want to keep, and I think you should go for higher tight end like they were saying. Schultz, he was great last year. I thought I had high expectations for him, but there's so much going wrong now that I'm not really trying to go acquire him at the moment.
Yeah. I see some more questions in here. We're going to hit those after a puzzle or two, but we got to get back into our game. You guys ready for the next puzzle?
Yep.
Yeah.
JL, this is your time. I can just feel it right here. And I did not mean that as an insult because the category is called an early disappointment, and you've been an early disappointment in this game, but it kind of fits. So early disappointments, JL. Sure. Without a doubt, that's how you spell disappointment. Don't look it up.
That is 100% wrong.
Nope, it's 100%.
You are an early disappointment. There's one S and two P's.
Okay, you know what? I've said time and time again, the words that trip me up the most are the ones where some of the consonants are doubled and some of them aren't. It's impossible.
I told you I was going to make a mistake, so you can't make fun of me for it.
I think this was just a diss on JL. That's why you put DISS.
Oh,
so I see what you're
early diss.
Early disappointments. Who solved that last puzzle?
I did.
Chev solved that last one. So Nate, you are going first here. The category is early disappointments. Like the last one, it's two players that have disappointed early in the season. They could be related in other ways, but the only way I'm telling you is that they both have disappointed early. Are you ready for your question, or would you like to solve this puzzle?
Question, sir.
Okay. Make sure you guys are back in the private chat. My question for you, Nate, is who has more passing yards so far through 2 weeks of this season? Who has more passing yards? Is it Carson Wentz or is it Joe Burrow?
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz is absolutely correct by more than 100 yards. Which letter would you like, Nate?
R, please.
An R. There are two R's in this puzzle. Going to add 1,000 to your round bank. Would you like to buy a vowel? Would you like another question? Would you like to solve this puzzle?
Let's do a question.
Another question. My question for you is, who has more passing yards through 2 weeks of this season? Who has more passing yards? Is it Trevor Lawrence or is it Davis Mills?
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is correct by about 100 yards. Which letter would you like, Nate?
Let's go with an N.
An N. There are 3 N's in this puzzle. Going to add another 1,500 to your round bank. So will be your last opportunity to buy any vowels this turn before we move on to JL, or you can just roll into your last question or solve it.
Let's go ahead and roll into my last question here.
Okay, who had more passing yards on the season so far? So through 2 weeks, who has more passing yards? Is it Jameis Winston or is it Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is correct by about 71 yards, Nate. Which letter would you like?
Let's go with an L.
An L. There are 3 L's in this puzzle. Going to add another 1,500. Nate, you got 5 seconds to solve or we're moving on to JL. Bonk. JL, it is your turn. Would you like to solve this puzzle or would you like a question?
I feel like I need a question. I know the answer, but I need to get some points, so I'll take a question.
Okay, JL, who has more passing yards so far this season? Who has more passing yards so far this season? Is it Joe Flacco or is it Derek Carr?
Flacco.
It is Flacco. Number 3 on the list through 2 weeks. Which letter would you like?
I will go with an S.
An S. There are 4 S's in this puzzle, JL. Going to add $2,000. Would you like another question? Would you like to buy a vowel or would you like to solve this puzzle?
You know what? I'm just going to solve Travis Etienne and Russell Wilson.
It is Travis Etienne and Russell Wilson. Nice job, JL. JL, I feel like I've heard you talk about the optimism that there's still left for Travis Etienne countless times now, but I haven't heard your take on what we can think for Russell Wilson going forward. What do you think? Do you think this is a Hackett problem and maybe they cut the coach early? We see like an Urban Meyer midseason exit, or do you think this is a new team and maybe we had high expectations after the moves from Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, and it's just going to take a minute?
Yeah, I mean, I brought these concerns up in the offseason about Russell Wilson, that it felt like everybody was assuming Russell Wilson's just like a plug and play guy who just turned this offense on. And it's not always that simple, right? It's not always that simple. I am still optimistic for Russell Wilson, but I think we need to also reevaluate what our priors were coming into the season. And just because he's surrounded by a ton of good talent and he's very talented, doesn't necessarily mean that all those pieces are going to work the way that we want.
Nate, as a Broncos fan, would you fire the head coach today or yesterday?
I'm going to be patient here because if you remember, Peyton Manning looked awful his first 3 games in Denver, and he threw for 55 touchdowns the next season. So I'm not worried yet.
You're not worried yet. You think he turns around. I'm poking fun a little, but I see Broncos Twitter just blowing up with the fire Hackett. Like after week 1, they were not having it. They were ready to go. Chev, do you have some optimism for Russell Wilson for the rest of this season, or do you think it's going to be tough sledding like we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think he'll get better. I mean, as a new coach and a new QB coming together, I mean, that takes time. I mean, like everybody has said, it's just going to take time for them to gel together. There's plenty of good weapons there. I think as the season goes on, they'll get better and they'll start to figure it out. I mean, that defense looked pretty well too. So I think that definitely helps their cause.
Absolutely. We're going to pull up our next puzzle. We got which puzzle are we going to do here? We're going to do this one. The category here is same team, first names. So these are 4 players on the same team, the same NFL team, but it is their first names only. JL, you solved that puzzle, which means we're starting with Chev. Chevin, do you want a question or would you like to solve this one?
Wait, one day we should do a same first name, same team category.
Same first name, same. I feel like there's very limited players.
There's got to be none. Or no, I was thinking same first team, different names. That's what
same first team, different name.
Yeah.
Perfect, JL. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
We'll do that one in the dream journal.
That's actually next is the next puzzle. Chevin, did you say you wanted a question or do you want to solve this?
Question, please.
This would be the most incredible solve of all time. If you pulled this one out where it's just first names, they're all exactly the same. I require them in the right order.
FanDuel extraordinaire one where he pulled it all out on air.
No, that one was wild. It was a headline. Thad Houston came up. It was literally a full headline, like filled every box on the screen, no letter solve. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
My question for you, Chev, is in the game, the Baltimore Ravens at the New England Patriots, which team is currently favored to win according to the FanDuel Sportsbook?
You said Ravens and Patriots?
Yeah, and it's at the Patriots. So Ravens are playing at New England. Which team is favored to win?
I mean, it better be the Ravens.
It is the Ravens, but they're only -3 favorites. They are -3 favorites on the road against New England. Chev, which letter would you like?
Ooh, let's go T.
A T. There are 2 T's in this puzzle. Would you like to solve? Would you like to buy a vowel, or would you like another question?
Let's go with another question.
Another question. My question for you is, who has more passing touchdowns on the season so far? Who has more passing touchdowns on the season? Is it Justin Herbert or is it Kyler Murray?
I'm going to go Herbert.
It is Herbert with 6 to Murray's 3. Which letter would you like, Chev?
Let's go with an S.
An S. There are 3 S's in this puzzle. Going to add another 1,500 to your round bank. Would you like your third question or would you like to buy a vowel?
Let's go one more question.
One more question. My question for you is, who has more receiving yards on the season so far? Who has more receiving yards? Is it Christian Kirk or is it Jarvis Landry?
Let's go.
Oh, sorry, Chef. I think you froze there for a second. Oh, you're back.
Kirk is who I'm going to go with.
And Kirk is the right answer. 195 to Jarvis Landry's 139. Landry has more than I thought he did, though. Which letter would you like, Chef?
Let's go with an N.
An N. There are 2 N's in this puzzle. You got 5 seconds to solve this, or we're moving on to Nate.
I think I know one, but I'm not sure on the others. So I'm going to go Nate. You got it.
Nate, you are up. Would you like to solve this puzzle, or would you like a question?
I'm going to need a question.
A question. My question for you, Nate, is who is currently favored in the matchup, the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook? So Saints at Panthers, which team is currently the favorite to win?
Man, I write a column every week on Tuesday mornings where I usually put in all of the betting lines and odds for every game, but I haven't done it yet today.
Oh.
But I'm going to go New Orleans on this one.
New Orleans is correct. They're 3-point favorites on the road. Nate, which letter would you like?
Ooh. Let's go with an L.
An L. There's one L in this puzzle.
Lucky
Gonna add
L.
500. Would you like another question? Would you like to buy a vowel, or would you like to solve?
Let's do a question.
Okay. My question for you is, who has more receiving yards so far on the season? Who has more receiving yards so far on the season? Is it Garrett Wilson, or is it Gerald Everett?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson is correct. The big game was enough to push him over 2 solid performances from Everett. Which letter would you like, Nate?
Let's go with a D.
A D.
Give him the
There's
D.
1 D in this puzzle,
heck?
Nate. Nate, this is your last opportunity to buy vowels before we move on to JL. Would you like to buy a vowel? Would you like to solve, or would you like your final question?
I'd like my final question.
Okay. My final question for you is, who has more receiving touchdowns through 2 weeks of the season? Who has more receiving touchdowns? Is it Michael Thomas, or is it Zach Ertz?
Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas has 3 to Ertz 1. Which letter would you like, Nate?
I'm going to go with a G.
A G. And there is 1 G. I think you might have figured out one of the names. Nate, you've got 5 seconds to solve, or we're moving on to JL, but you will bank this money. As Chevin banked his, I need to make sure to add both your money.
Gerald, Justin, Isaiah, Austin.
Risky, but you got it. Justin and Austin in the right order, Nate. If it was the wrong order, I wouldn't have counted it, but you got it absolutely correct. Gonna bank that 1,500, and Chev, we're gonna make sure we get you your extra 3,500, which should put you to 11,000 if my math is correct. JL sitting at a solid 2,500.
Where I live.
Nate, that was a great pull right there, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough to catch Chev.
Nope.
Chev, you are our our fantasy fortune champion on this Tuesday. Congratulations, my man.
Appreciate it, man. It was a tough fight. You know, Jo started off strong, but he just couldn't hang with the big boys. But
immediately got weak.
Early disappointment.
Early disappointment, just like he had it written up.
Also, Tim, and you're saying Nate never got his 4K from the other round. You know what? We're going to send this to New York. They're going to check the tape. Nate, if you did, in fact, do that, we will send you Cole's cash as well in the mail, I promise. We are not going to steal any victories, but
I just want to win. Just publicly announce that I won.
Okay, if that's the case, we'll announce it. But the call on the field was that Chev is our winner. We're gonna check the tape, and maybe FYF has to release a statement at some point this week after we've reviewed it. Fantasy Dog wants to know, are they getting real money?
Cole's cash, baby.
Cole's cash is about as real as it gets. Real fiat currency right there. Before we go, we had a couple questions in here that I wanted to answer. Smokey the Cat said, guys, need some advice. Should I trade Higgins for Monty? So T. Higgins for David Montgomery. They have Zeke, Hunt, Henderson, and Madison. Wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Ayuk, Renfro, Godwin, Gallup, and Burks. Nate, I saw you nod your head and then go, whoa, what are you thinking here?
I read it wrong. I thought he was going to get Higgins for Monty.
Same.
And then when I realized that he was trading Higgins for Monty, I completely changed my tune. Look, dude, David Montgomery just isn't going to be a guy this year. That's all.
That's it.
Higgins is.
Monty's going to get the work, but the Bears are the Bears right now. And until I see that offense change something, like Montgomery looks great when he's running, but that offense can't get going and they're not feeding him like they should maybe. And if he's the only thing that works in that offense, if they can't get the passing game going, you're going to see teams start stacking the box just to stop Montgomery. So hopefully
where the touchdown's going to come from, they're not getting down to the red zone. It ain't going to help you very much.
Right.
Not at all. I'm on the Higgins side here. Joe in here said, where can I? Oh, there we go. He wants a Keenan Allen voodoo doll, so he misses more time and Mike Williams kills it again. No, absolutely not. We want Keenan Allen back and healthy. We love Keenan Allen. And Keenan and Mike can eat together. They can eat together.
I got a lot more Mike Williams than I got Keenan Allen. I think I'm with Joe here.
I want a Keenan Allen voodoo doll and a Mike Williams voodoo doll, and I'm just gonna rub their backs at night to make them feel a little better. So
yes, I like this.
Give me a Justin Herbert. I'll help out with that.
Okay, thank you.
We got rub their backs together. I was like, why is that going to make them feel better?
All of a sudden, in the middle of the game, you see Keenan Allen and Mike Williams just like.
Is that you, Keenan?
What are you doing? Come here now. Had a question for us. Said Bateman, Judy, McLaurin, Drake London. Pick 2, half PPR. Chev, which two of those players would you be starting?
Man, I'm going Bateman and Drake London at the moment. I'm not sure how serious Judy's injury is. I just think Drake and Bateman are going to be the main vocal points for their offense, and that's what I want in my lineup.
Nate, what about you? Are you
Drake
agreeing
at
with
this
Chef?
point?
Same. I mean, Bateman and London are pretty solid plays.
Mm-hmm.
But Jail, to answer your question, unless you've got a really good team, you're probably not benching Drake London. Drake London's probably in your lineup every week unless you went wide receiver super heavy early. Like if you've got Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and T. Higgins on your roster, then maybe you're not plugging in Drake London every week. But yeah, he's bordering on that every week start territory, which is awesome to see. Chev and Nate, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on with us today. This was an absolute blast. And you beat JL, so that's an extra plus.
Always a plus.
Always, baby.
I love getting beat. I'm such a sub.
Yeah, JL, I only said that because I know you enjoy it. It's your energy, pleasure is my pleasure right there. And JL, you know what? You may not have won in the points, but you won in smiles and laughs and in heart.
There you go. That's all I care about.
One more for the chat. Guys, that's going to be it for us today. Before you go, make sure you go follow our guests on Twitter. You can find Nate at Nate Polvote. It is right there below his face on the screen. And then Chevin's on Twitter at ChevBoyRD. Again, right there below his face on the screen. We will be back on Thursday on the FanDuel YouTube channel for the Front Yard Fantasy Hour, playing some more games than office hours right after that. And if you're up early tomorrow, come hang out with JL Coop and I on the Front Yard Fantasy Morning Show over on Better Sports Network. You can also watch it right here on our YouTube channel. Until then, though, we are out of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Adios, everyone.
We love you. See you tomorrow.
Bye. Wrong
Solid.
video.